Here with Zachary Prensky, Managing Director of Little Bear Investment and an expert in the biotech space. Zachary, thanks for being here.
Appreciate the opportunity.
So investments in the biotech space, or at least returns in the biotech space over the past couple of years, has been upward of 400%. Can you explain some of the recent reasons why?
Sure. Biotech companies have been around since the very first IPO in 1981, Enzo Biochem. For the first 10, 15 years, most biotech investments were busts, meaning if you took 10 different companies inventing 10 different new treatments for exotic illnesses, probably 6, 7, or 8 of them might be failures. Over the past 10, 15 years, we've seen a real renaissance, especially here in America. There have been many, many successful biotech investments, basically drugs that look good on paper, start to look good in the clinic, work in people. And so the percentage success that companies in the biotech arena have had in the last 10, 15 years is far greater than they were in the 80s and 90s. And that's, of course, led to some great returns for the investors in those companies.
How much money is flowing into biotech?
Oh my gosh, boy, oh boy. I mean, there isn't a week that goes by that somebody's not raising 30, 40, 50, $100 million. It used to be you'd had maybe 5, 10, 15 IPOs. I would say in the last year, you've seen 60, 70 companies go public.
Out of the 70, how many are junk science? How many are pseudoscience versus actual real fundamental companies?
This is like any wave of investor enthusiasm. Whenever there is a huge, huge crush of cash, investments, money going into a space, you're always going to have charlatans that are looking to pull some of that and put in their own pocket. We're very careful. We probably look at 20 to 30 biotech investments a month, end up pulling the trigger on less than 10% of them. And when you get the chance to look at a lot of these companies, there are a couple of warning signs that stick out at you time and time again.
What are 5 warning signs that you look for?
Top 5 goes as follows. Number 1 is data not published in a peer-reviewed journal. If your peers haven't reviewed the data and all you're doing is putting in a PowerPoint in front of some investors, we stay far away. Number 2 is when companies present ad hoc post-trial analysis. All trials have an endpoint. If you miss your endpoint, but you say, hey, within this trial there's some data that points to something else after it's done, look, anybody can take any data and find some pattern in it somewhere. We stay far away from ad hoc analysis. Third is moving the goalposts. When companies change the way they run a trial while it's being run, change dosage level, number of patients, the sites they use, big red flag. We stay far away from those kind of things. Number 4 is where the principal investigator who's responsible for running a study owns stock in the company running the study. They've obviously got a huge incentive to see that stock move and move a lot higher. We look for studies that are run by people that are independent of the companies that are funding the studies. Johnson & Johnson and Merck doesn't hire their own employees with stock options to go off and run studies. They hire a third party, usually from academia, and they're compensated with a fixed cash payment. So whether the drug works or doesn't, that's not their primary concern. Their primary concern is making sure that the study is run properly. And there are websites you can check to see who's running these studies, and if they own stock, we stay far away. The 5th one is a little more complicated, but it's called a lack of a dose escalating response. When somebody takes a drug for many different major disorders, such as things in neurology, 5 or 10 milligrams works, 15 or 20 will work better. If a drug works at a specific dosage level, but then if I increase the dose, the company comes and says, you know what, the data was terrible. We see that all the time. Companies present to us and say, we've got a 60 milligram dose that works. The 120 didn't. Huge red flag, because in general, not every situation, but the odds are if a drug works at dose X, X plus 2, X plus 5, it should also work and work slightly better. When it doesn't, stay far away.
Is the process of investing in biotech different than investing in other sectors?
When it comes to biotech stocks, the magic is in the science. You really have to be able to understand what the drug is, sometimes how it works, but more importantly, breaking down the data, what's called a clinical study, meaning taking the drug and putting it into humans and seeing what comes out, taking that data and really understanding it. Company stocks rise or fall based upon whether or not human data is good, okay, or not good. That's why if you look at these stocks right around the time that they release data, they're extraordinarily volatile. There are times stocks can go up 30, 50%. I've seen stocks drop 80, 90% if they only have one drug and they come out and tell you I studied it in a human being and it didn't work. Those stocks can blow up. So they're extraordinarily volatile, and you need to be able to understand the data that comes out.
Where are we in the evolution of biotechnology?
Look, that's a great question. I followed this sector for over 20 years. In the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of companies that went public promising a lot of things, and the success rate was extremely low. Nowadays, however, the cream of the crop has come public, and more the percentages of successes at human studies has gone up. Whether that's because we've gotten better at it, whether that's because bankers are smarter at what companies are taking public, I'm not quite sure. But it's clear that the present candidates that trade on the public markets, by and large, is a better cohort of companies to choose from than existed 15 or 20 years ago.
So speaking of Wall Street analysts, they put price targets on it, they long it, they short it. Do they really understand the science, and are they actually going out there and speaking to the companies, speaking to management, speaking to key opinion leaders, or are they just working off what they have in front of them?
You know, that's a fantastic question. We divide analysts on Wall Street into two buckets. Those that have degrees in the field that they're studying, and I don't mean finance degree. If somebody is writing research on a company developing a drug for schizophrenia or for breast cancer, you want to see that they've got an MD or PhD in that field. If somebody went to NYU Business School and is trying to explain to me that some early stage treatment for lung cancer is going to work, I watch my wallets. Analysts that don't have deep scientific background in the field that the biotech is investigating a drug, very, very cautious.
Zach, what sectors are we going to see some new and exciting research coming out of?
Well, look, there's been a lot of failures, but I'm really hopeful that in the next couple of years we're going to see something for Alzheimer's. It's a terrible, terrible illness if you ever had anybody in your family suffer from it. There's very little out there that can help, but there's a lot of exciting drugs that are in the market. Large companies like Eli Lilly, smaller companies that are looking at things. I'm very hopeful in the next 5-10 years we're going to see at least something that can move the needle here.
Zach, 225,000 people are going to be diagnosed next year with lung cancer. What's the biotech sector doing about it?
There's a lot of great stuff that's in the pipeline. A lot of it's focused on personalized treatments, meaning lung cancer is not just the same for every single person suffering from it. Different lung cancers have different biomarkers, and what we're finding is treatments that are tailored for certain subsets of those work better. And I'm hopeful in the next 5 or 10 years we're going to see stuff for very specific strains of lung cancer. Very
insightful. Thank you for joining the program. This was Zachary Prensky, Managing Director of Little Bear Investments. Where can people contact you, Zachary?
Best place is our website, www.littlebear.us. We publish our research there. Also, we've got a daily Twitter feed at Zachfoot, Zackfoot. A lot of great commentary on a daily basis. Biotechs we like, biotechs we don't always like, but we put it out there.
Thank you for joining the program, Zachary.
Thanks.